And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
Los Angeles.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. 888-659-3727 is our toll-free number. I want to welcome all of you guys who are tuning into our special weekend edition of The Bald Truth. Obviously, we are streaming live on all of our live streaming resources, but we're also live, of course, on Joe Tillman's personal hair transplant mentor YouTube page. So I want to welcome everyone who is tuning in, watching now on Joe's page. Also, everyone who's tuning in on Stitcher Radio, iTunes Radio, iHeartRadio, and obviously the GFQ network, The Bald Truth. I don't know if Joe actually put the embed into Bald Truth Talk, but if you are watching on Bald Truth Talk, welcome. We are kind of running an experiment, trying to figure out what our best second day for the live broadcast will be. We've been getting a lot of requests to do another broadcast. Also, guys who are calling into the show. I figured out why you guys are not getting a busy signal if all the lines are occupied, and that is one of my Vonage boxes is no longer working. So I was like, okay, there's only 6 lines lit. Why aren't there 8 lines lit? Well, it's because one box the light is on, but I didn't check it closely enough, so it's not working. So the way that things work, just so you can get a little inside baseball, is that with any type of phone bank like this, and especially the way that I had to jerry-rig it, I essentially connect one box to another with rollover numbers. So there's one initial number that rolls to the second number, if that's busy, that rolls to the third number, and each box only contains, you can only have 2 numbers in each box. If that last box is not working, then you'll get like a click, or you'll hear the show for a second and then be dropped off. If that happens, that means all of our lines are busy. So try to call back. Hopefully we can have that all fixed. I ordered another box by next week. And then for those of you who are trying to call in and the lines are full, then you'll hear a busy signal and realize I have to call back. So the phone number is 888-659-3727. Let me make sure the phones are actually working right now. They are. We obviously have some lines open. We just started the broadcast, so feel free to call in. If you are new to the show, don't know who I am, who we are, I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I am the founder of the American Hair Loss Association, and I'm the author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss, also the founder of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. Interestingly enough, Joe, and by the way, Joe is the original hair transplant mentor.
By the way.
Yeah. And he is, this is now Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth with Joe Tillman.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I just lost my train of thought. I had something interesting to tell you, Joe.
See, that's what happens when you leave me out.
Yes. Well, how about this? I did my opening with you on the fucking screen for a change.
You did. You did. Yeah.
And eventually what I can do is I can do the opening. You can mouth it. And people think it's coming from you. I would like you to do the fucking opening so I can just sit back like you and just jump in, because that's the easy part.
Hey, man, it's your show. You got to do the heavy work, man.
Dude.
Your name's out front.
Now it's with Joe Tillman, so your name is fucking out front too. So maybe you should do some work. Every once in a while, do an opening. You know, like when I leave to take a piss, don't look like, a deer in the headlights. I don't want you to freak out. No, actually, I was actually talking to somebody. Actually, I think it was John Cole, Dr. John Cole.
Dr. John Cole.
And we were talking about you. And I
didn't do it.
I was telling him how, and this is not to sound obnoxious, guys, because Joe is always able to present well. He does great videos. But it's different when you sit behind the mic and you have to not only run the program, but you have to kind of, sometimes you have to vamp. You have to kind of think about what you're going to say kind of on the fly. And I was just commenting on how much Joe has gotten to the point where he's a real pro now.
Thank you.
And I didn't want to use the word improved because it's not like he sucked from the beginning or anything. You're very good right off the bat, but you absolutely have gotten to the point now where I think you can carry the show. And at some point I would like to just get the fuck out of here. Just collect checks and you could do everything.
I can start earning my keep, basically, is what you're saying.
No, you're already earning your keep, but I could relax a little bit. I'm a little older than you.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, more than a little bit, half a decade, which is pretty significant, actually.
Well, at our age, every 5 years is significant. So,
at our age, every 2 years.
Every 2 years
is significant.
At our age, making it through the night sleeping is a big deal.
Absolutely. At our age, being able to take a piss without pain is a big deal.
At our age, being able to not piss in the bed at night when we're sleeping is a big deal.
At our age, being able not to piss on your foot in the middle of the night when you're taking a piss is a big deal.
In the bed.
In the bed. You guys have no clue what it's like. Now, actually, you and I are relatively, and knock on wood, compared to our contemporaries, guys that we see at these meetings, I got to tell you, they are all fucked up.
Yeah. Back braces.
Oh, it's unreal. There's a guy.
Their arthritis, their ankles are swelling up.
I don't want to mention his name, but he's a physician. He's out of the New York area, and he's been built like an old man since he was a young man. And now I see him old, and it's like, or old, he's younger than me, but I'm like, holy shit, how does this happen to a human being? That's complete neglect. You don't have to do much to somehow stay relatively fit, mobile, flexible, able to stand up straight, able to get a pair of, normal sized, jeans on so you don't have that old man jean thing happening. It takes very little work.
That's the worst.
Anyway, guys, this is the Hair Loss Show. So I want you guys to all feel free to call in. We're doing a special Saturday edition, and so far no one has called. So if you want us to stay on the air today, and if you want to ask your questions, you need to call the broadcast, and that's 888-659-3727. And I will put up the UK number for all of you guys who are in the UK and other parts of Europe. You can, what the hell just happened there? You can call in on 0203-3724-683. That is 0203-3724-683. I'll leave that on the lower third for a while.
Good idea.
And Joe, we do actually have a couple of phone calls on the line since I did say we're going to leave if you don't call. So I will.
Listened.
I'll take a call. But guys, just so you know, we are the Hair Loss Guys. It sounds cheesy when I say that, but it's the truth. This is what we do. This is all I do. I just celebrated I've been on the air for over 20 years, but I just celebrated, and I'm not saying I celebrated, but LinkedIn apparently celebrated my 27th year as an entrepreneur.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I'm getting all these congratulations from people. I have no clue who these people are, half of these people, about being an entrepreneur, being a independent broadcaster, being an author. I started very young. And I think about 27 years, as Kevin Nolte wrote, who was at one point a very well-known YouTube celebrity, one of the first YouTube celebrities. a web celebrity, as he called himself. He said, "Congratulations on 27 years of not having to work for the man." Well, Kevin, I appreciate that, but the truth is we are all working for the man. That is the nature of the game. You want to own a home, you're working for the state. You want to, register your car, same fucking shit. Everything we do, we're connected to the man at some point or another. There's just different degrees of working for the man. So it's all.
You could almost say different degrees of manhood.
No, you can't. But
no, it doesn't work. Okay, yeah. I tried.
Good try.
It's Saturday, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. We're experimenting here.
Whatever. You got the blue shirt on. It works. 888-659-3727, 0203-3724-683. I know that's your show shirt.
It is.
And I like it, as a matter of fact.
Freshly washed and pressed.
Now I'm thinking, maybe even though I only change maybe 4 or 5 shirts during my broadcast, maybe we should just wear like a uniform.
I got some scrubs.
No, I'm serious. Like, we'll have like something like the TBT logo. Boom. This way you don't have to ever worry about what we're going to wear.
I like that.
Kind
of like scrubs.
Or we can get like work shirts with our names on it, like mechanic shirts.
Lou.
Yeah, I like that. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey guys, it's Maurice Wiggs from Brooklyn.
Maury,
hello,
how are you, man? What's going on?
Not much, man. I was actually headed out the door when the notice came in. I was like, okay, there are my boys. I got to call my boys,
Dude, I always appreciate your call. So what's going on?
Outstanding.
Well, it's a gorgeous day in Brooklyn. Got lots of sunshine. I'm actually headed into the park to take a nice little walk and have a nice little chat with 2 of my favorite people on the internet.
So which part? Are you in Prospect Park?
That's where I'm headed. Yep.
Awesome. That's a beautiful place, man.
I know, man. I tell you something. I've been living in this neighborhood, and it just keeps getting better and better. The neighborhood's changed. Actually, when I first moved, it was.
You're breaking up, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, better.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the way I hold my phone. Sometimes it gets muffled, but the neighborhood's changed. It's funny. I have crazy neighbors. I had Spitzer for a neighbor for a little while. I have Schumer for a neighbor.
Wow.
So yeah, it's getting a little crazy. I probably couldn't afford to live here now if I had to buy into it now. But anyway, yeah. So when you guys came on, I feel like I need to talk about my experience because I'm waiting online to see Wesley. That appointment is coming up next month.
Right.
And for whatever reason, the internet has been showing me things. So I started watching, I don't know why I did it, started watching Tillman's video on Lupinzula. He did a video where he was showing Lupinzula actually doing his FUE. And
dude, you gotta talk into the phone, dude.
I'm sorry, is this better?
Yes, much better.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. So I was watching the video that Joe put up. It was a OR video of Dr. Lupinzula working an FUE. And it's kind of amazing to watch these guys work in terms of the skills. But at the same time, like he was working off this one area. Apparently this was either a repair case or a second transplant.
It was a repair case. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So the camera kind of panned over an area which had already been harvested, I guess, during the previous. And man, it's like I looked at the area because again, it was naked skin, right? So it looked moth-eaten. It looked like a piece of Swiss cheese.
Well, that patient did have I remember the patient well, and that patient did have a pretty. His donor wasn't in the best shape, and that in that video, I remember it was actually pretty fun because I remember I was watching Dr. Lupinzula in a previous video. He's mapping out the donor area on the same patient. And he's mapping out every square centimeter that he's going to be extracting from. And he's calculating how much hair or how many follicles are in each square centimeter as he's going.
By the way, his call dropped, so I don't know if he's actually able to listen or watch. But Maury, call back.
Yeah, call back. Yeah. But he can probably still hear. But
there he is.
He's taking varying percentages of follicles from each square centimeter of the donor. So if one part of the donor area is thinner than another, then he takes fewer grafts from that square centimeter before he moves on to the next one. And some he'll take a higher percentage. And he doesn't, like a normal natural density donor area on a virgin scalp, I don't think he takes more than 30% from any square centimeter because he doesn't want to have that problem with his patients. So what you're seeing was from the previous procedure.
So, you actually disconnected. Sorry about that. So, here's the thing. It's interesting that you say that. There was a guy that I watched his YouTube video yesterday. He's a YouTuber that talks about hair transplants, and I guess he's I don't know how many months out. I forgot, and I don't want to be too specific. I really felt for this guy, and I know that he's really happy to promote his hair transplant. But I was taking a look at it, and it's not even we're talking about a social setting. It's not as though he's getting ultra close. I mean, some of the images some of the frames he was a little bit closer than others. But even from a social distance, and this has nothing to do with Lupinzula. This is just basically talking about the current state of the industry. And I don't know, Joe, if you know who I'm talking about, but he just posted his, I don't know if it's 10 months out or 12 months out or whatever it is. On YouTube. And I'm looking at the ridging, I'm looking at the compression, I'm looking at the angle of the grafts, and then he turned around to show the donor area, which he keeps very shaved pretty closely. And to see the demarcations and the punctate wounds that are so visible, it was really disturbing to me. And there were people who were talking or chatting or commenting, I should say, on his page. Some people did state that it wasn't great work, whatever it is, which I feel bad about too, because obviously this guy's happy. But I guess my point is, what we are seeing online, what's being promoted by YouTubers, what's being promoted by guys in message forums, is far and away it's a far cry from what we should be expecting from state-of-the-art FUE. And I think the case that Lupinzula was working on was probably a similar type of repair, where the guy was either over-harvested or the prior physician used a larger punch than necessary, which created that moth-eaten punctate wound effect.
I think it was more the latter. He had used larger punches.
So, for anyone who goes in there and says, okay, I'm going to have a device-driven procedure, realize that most of the device-driven procedures, even some of the handheld procedures, once that device is set up, essentially the technicians set most of these devices up with the largest punch possible to start, just to make their jobs easier in order to get the grafts out. So a lot of guys who end up going to an IHRS member or to a real repair expert like Lupinzula have undergone procedures either through machine type of procedures or from guys who really just wanted to make their jobs easier, who were using techs. And that's how a lot of these technicians are able to, and again, there's a lot of great techs out there, they're able to get the numbers and able to get the intact follicular units without transecting them by using larger punches. Now, in the end, that gives patients a much less of a chance of really moving as much hair as they could have possibly moved if the punches were smaller to begin with. So I know that was kind of a roundabout thing, but I was it just reminded me of this video that I saw last night. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, I know that he's trying to help people. And I think that he has an interesting channel. But the work is so bad. And this is what consumers today, especially young guys, think hair transplantation is.
It's the new normal. Pluggy is the new normal.
But this is beyond pluggy. This is, which happens to some people, but it really has to do with compression and has to do with a lot of different issues. But, just the red ridging in the hairline, the significant compression, the poor angulation, the wiry hair characteristics.
The design of the hairline, the placement of the grafts, the angles, everything about it's wrong.
I can't even believe that this is being shown as a good hair transplant. But here's the thing. I want the patient to be happy. I'm glad that the guy is happy with his appearance. And, all in all, I mean, he probably looks better that he has hair than he doesn't have hair. But this is the way that it was in the 80s and in the 90s. That guys just wanted their hair done. They were just happy that they had more hair in their head. And they thought, okay, well, this is what a hair transplant looks like. It may look like a hair transplant, but at least I have more hair in my head. Guys, if you're watching those videos, understand that that's not what hair transplantation is supposed to look like today. So, Morty, just to get back to your point, obviously Dr. Lupinzula was working on a case that was sadly fucked up prior to this guy walking through his doors.
Gotcha.
So, but you also have to realize if you're going in for FUE, and you need to ask these questions. What do you think, what size punches do you think you can use on my type of hair in my donor area?
Yeah.
And when they're going in there that day, ask to see the instrumentation. Make sure that you have in writing that these are the punches that are going to be used. Know what you're getting. Because, mid-surgery, they can say, this guy, it's too difficult. We need to use a larger punch. If that's the case, I believe that you should be giving these guys permission to do that.
I've seen cases where the patient was talking about how the punch was changed in the middle of the surgery because the doctor was like, well, we're not getting him out. We need to move up a size in punches. But there's no consultation about this during the procedure. And I think that this should be brought up because obviously a larger punch, there are obvious additional potential downsides. I mean, obviously you're going to get, more hair safely with a larger punch, but at what cost? What scarring cost? What thinning of the donor? Peripheral transection of neighboring grafts? This should be explained. It's not just, we're just going to go up, half a millimeter or a millimeter in the punch size, half a millimeter or several tenths of a millimeter. You need to know. This needs to be explained, and you got to ask questions about this if it's proposed to you that's going to happen, so that you're informed. Now, when you're in surgery, it's kind of hard to think about this stuff, but you got to try. But at the very least, they need to be telling you what's going on, why the changes are being made, and what the downsides are.
What I suggest to doctors, and not too many guys do it, is to have a whiteboard that's visible to the patient during the surgery. And a lot of times, patients fall asleep. But, any move that's being made, whether they need to change the punch or whatever it is, that should be written down on that whiteboard so the patient is aware of what's going on. And there's also a record of it besides what's being written in the case log. I think that the patient should have the ability to take an image of what's on the whiteboard and say, okay, I'm getting these many grafts are being extracted. They're using these punches at this time, so on and so forth. That seems excessive or obsessive. But the truth of the matter is I think that the patient really has the right. And giving that full disclosure and providing that information to patients in real time will also give the patients a sense of confidence and knowing that, okay, at least I know what's happening. And I know if there's any type of an issue down the line, there's no questions. You know exactly what's going on.
Exactly.
So, at some point, maybe we can make that. I don't know if we can make it a requirement, but I can definitely strongly suggest it to all of the doctors. And I have suggested that to a couple of guys, and I don't think anyone has taken me up on that because they think it's a pain in the ass. But it's a very easy thing. It's like if you're staying in a hospital, there's a whiteboard there. It tells you what medications, well, some hospitals were given, when they were given, so on and so forth. Every patient has the right to see that. So, Morty, so when is you're still trying to make a decision, or I forgot if you made an appointment for surgery, if you scheduled a surgery.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I still there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure because I got cut off and then I dialed back and I didn't hear the funny noise, so I wasn't sure if I was there.
Yeah,
cool.
Joe usually makes the funny noises. Just kidding.
Well, I'm glad. So, yeah, no, I mean, I'm dipping my toe in the water. I am currently uncut. So, I took that to heart. And, in a way, it sounds crazy, but it's like the collective unconscious of the internet seems to be sending me messages about the potential downsides. And you guys were the first to send the message of don't get a hair transplant, actually, Joe specifically. But, it's such an important thing to consider as a first option.
I gotta step in and say that Spencer's been saying that for 20 years. I just did it in a different format. Yeah. So
well, thank you, Joe, for that.
That's always been his message from the beginning.
I was burning up inside. No, actually, Joe, I give Joe all the credit in the world, man. Joe is fucking killing it. So I'm glad we're able to work together.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, it's important because, it's like that. The Hairliciously guy recently put up a video called The 10 Worst Hair Transplants, and it was like, the things were horrifying, quite literally. And I think it's a good thing that
did he include some of the YouTubers out there in that, or were they all celebrities?
Yeah, well, I mean, go ahead.
He did some YouTubers. But I don't think they're actually YouTubers so much as they were celebrities that are talked about on YouTube. I saw the video, and I do remember thinking that if it's the same one, he's showing results of just some everyday people as well. And he's unfortunately he's incorrect on some of his information. He's talking about one result being a bad FUE when it's actually like a 30-year-old plug job. And I mean, the message is not altered in any way because of these inaccuracies. He's doing the best he can because he just doesn't know, and that's fine. But I don't recall any specific current YouTubers that he's talking about. Do you, Maury?
Not really. I mean, most of what I recall is what he was showing and the statements that he was making. So, like, some of them clearly were incorrect. Like he kept on obsessing about nape hair, which, you guys have basically chimed in as being incorrect, and that it is susceptible to DHT and all this. Excuse the background noise. The Marines are actually doing their practicing in the park right now.
Oh, that's very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys doing rifle exercises. But anyway, so he talked about nape hair, which I didn't.
You better make sure they're Marines, my man.
No, well,
if they have rifles,
then it says fighting spirit of an entire nation with a big picture Marines, and these guys are Marines. Okay. It's Fleet Week here in New York right now.
Right.
So, anyway, but there were certain things that were true, like the idea of having a very pluggy looking hairline with, not enough density going back. So what you end up seeing is this kind of like thin forest look at the hairline, going all the way back, And the funny thing is again, maybe it's just from watching all this stuff that I'm becoming hypersensitive to what these things look like. And more I'm thinking to myself, do I really want to do this?
Well, if you want to see what a good hair transplant looks like, just continue to look at Joe. And that is what a hair transplant is supposed to look like. That is it. Now, that's not what you're seeing from these YouTubers, unfortunately. And look, I don't want to give these guys shit because I think that they have the right to put their information out there. Some of these guys are very happy with their work. They just don't really fully comprehend the entire scope and all the real pitfalls of hair transplant surgery in today's environment because they were victims themselves and they don't even realize it. One may realize it to some degree, but the others don't even realize it. If you look at the man known as Paul McCartney through the show. If you take a look at his donor, you will see that there's some significant issues that another person may be extremely unhappy with. The frontal hairline itself, while I'm not going to take away the fact that the guy is a nice-looking guy. He's extremely talented. He dummies up his hair perfectly. I mean, I dummy up my hair. I got this wavy, ridiculous thing going on, which is just that's how I live my life. But the providing information as an expert when you're not an expert, to me, really provides a kind of a sense of almost anarchy when it comes to really educating patients or people, human beings, on something that is as serious as cosmetic surgery. It's a fucking free-for-all.
Oh, I believe it.
When the information is being shared is not just incorrect, but confidently presented as being correct when it's not, that's dangerous. And so far there hasn't been anything really major as far as like a dangerous recommendation. But some of these, generally speaking, some of these guys have made some dangerous suggestions, such as do it yourself or do it yourself at home remedies where you're piercing your own skin. Now, there are just issues that I think should prevent that type of advice or recommendation, because there's infectious issues, there's pain management issues, there's adverse reactions. Like if you start injecting yourself to numb yourself up, what if you inject an air bubble into your system because you don't know how to use a syringe properly? I mean, there's so many issues that go along.
Even if you know how to use a syringe properly, even if there is no air bubble, if you actually put a lidocaine, for instance, into a vein, you're gonna have a fucking heart attack. That's it. You're dead, man. Or if you hit a nerve, I mean, there are nerves all over your scalp that actually will, affect, branches. There's 3 branches up here. What is it? The trigenital nerve or trigeminal nerve? Very easy to fuck up. You can fuck it up by grinding at night. And all of a sudden you're going to have numbness in your eye, numbness on your scalp, and numbness all the way down your mouth, and not know why the fuck that happened. You know why that happened? Because you self-injected lidocaine into your fucking nerves.
Yep.
So anyone who would advise homemade PRP, anyone who would advise, any type of procedure in the house, is probably someone you should look at with a jaundiced eye and say, not that they're necessarily bad people, but realize that they're just totally ill-informed young guys.
First time I saw something like that, some sort of do it at home remedy, was when derma rolling first entered the scene as a hair loss self-treatment, where you can use a derma roller or a derma patch, or I forgot what they're called. They're the ones that you just press down, not roll. But and being the way that young men are.
And by the way, I don't mean to cut you off. Guys, hold on. I will take your calls as soon as we get off this call. It's 888-659-3727 or 0203-372-4683. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
That's all right. They think that, well, I'm told to do it once or twice a week. Well, screw that. I'll do it 5-10 times a week. And they wind up turning their foreheads or whatever part of their scalp they're derma rolling into hamburger. Like I remember seeing pictures a long time ago. I remember seeing pictures of some guy whose forehead, where he's trying to bring back his hairline and his temples, was bleeding, like it was raw.
Well, I've seen guys who've used 1 millimeter derma rollers, and it was raw. And yes, I mean, if you go over the same area over and over again with a 1 millimeter derma roller, you will cause permanent fibrotic tissue.
Yeah.
End of subject.
That means scarring, guys, which is what you don't want.
That is scarring. That is all, so your native hair that you're trying to save will not have an adequate blood supply. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you can have a blood supply to some degree in scar tissue. And while, 1 millimeter, it's deep, but it's, your hair follicles go a little deeper. It may not affect the hair follicle itself on every pass, but if you create that scar tissue, you're fucked. You're really screwing up your potential for future surgery, possibly future treatments that are coming down the line that could really help with your hair growth. Guys have no idea what they're doing. But Morty, is there anything else that you wanted to ask before we let you go? And obviously, I appreciate the fact that you're in the park enjoying your day and calling the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I just want to finish with the following statement, which is to say, anyone who's listening and who is considering doing the surgery and doing anything drastic like, cutting the flesh, even if it's like you're saying with derma rolling, even if you're just piercing it with, with a derma roller, just, take a good look in the mirror and ask yourself, do you really look that bad? You know, and I'm beginning to think the answer is no. So,
I think
congratulations.
I think that's good advice, man.
Yeah.
All right, Morty, listen, you take care. Thanks for the call, and we probably will speak to you next time, right?
Yeah, no, I will definitely keep on calling. You guys are fun to listen to. So.
All right, man. You're the best, man. Thanks. Enjoy Brooklyn. I love the area you're living in, by the way. Take care.
All right, man.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from? Hey, man, you're on the air.
Hi, do you hear me well?
Yeah, hi.
Do you hear me well?
I can hear you, but you sound a little off.
Is it better now?
A little bit.
Are you on speakerphone?
I'm actually on my MacBook.
Okay.
Okay.
On my laptop, right?
Okay.
I will try to speak closer to the mic so you hear me better. I wanted to, first of all, share some experience regarding hair loss and the treatment, if that is okay.
Sure. First of all, tell me, what's your name and where you're calling from?
I'm John, and I'm calling from a foreign territory.
Okay. What's a foreign? Right. What is a foreign territory?
Oh, I would rather not disclose the country.
Is it Romania by chance?
Okay? Doesn't really matter, actually.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
I wanted to report my experience. First of all, I wanted to actually thank you that the show is still going on. And my experience is with finasteride and dutasteride, taking them both in combination. It's about 1.25 of finasteride and 0.5 dutasteride every day. And so far, for about 5 years, I have pretty much maintained and actually thickened my hair at about Norwood 2.5. Something about that marker. It hasn't gone worse because I got it checked at a trachologist, and she confirmed that the hair is actually thicker. I'm also taking a lot of multivitamins and regular minoxidil spray on the head. So my question is, what effect could using dutasteride and finasteride together for such a long time have on fertility? Because I know that on my hormonal system, I have seen positive effects. I have taken blood tests to confirm that my dihydrotestosterone is on a very low level. However, my body started to compensate. Once I started taking dutasteride, my testosterone doubled from 4 units or something, or 5, to about 8 or 9. Just from taking dutasteride, apparently my body tried to compensate from lack of dihydrotestosterone or something of that sort. So that's a good side effect, basically, because I'm working out and it helps. But I'm a bit cautious regarding the fertility effects long term. Maybe you have any experience.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you considering having a child soon? Are you married? Do you have a significant other that you want to have a baby with?
No, not at this point. But I want to know what effect could it have long term, because maybe I will want to have a kid 5-10 years down the line, and I don't want to find out that I had, fried my balls or something.
How old are you now?
30 years old.
You're 30 years old. Wow, time flies, man. So,
right.
I can tell you this. First of all, we're both not physicians, so we really have no clue if long-term use of dutasteride and finasteride combined is going to affect your fertility. Now, according to all clinical data, the use of them separately, clinically, has not shown any fertility issues. As a matter of fact, there are many guys who are part of our community who call the program, who are part of the online community, who've had children while they were on finasteride for a long period of time. There are also those who have had children while they're on dutasteride. For me personally, I am, I'd rather not, suggest that someone be the anomaly, potentially be an anomaly, where they're, impregnating somebody, and even though there is no clinical data showing any birth defects while a guy's on this drug, I would always suggest that you plan that pregnancy and get off the drug for a while, even though physicians do not suggest that. As far as your fertility itself, we don't know. But according to data, there doesn't seem to be any data with the drug's use individually on the long term. There is no clinical data showing the combination that I'm aware of finasteride and dutasteride on fertility. So I wish I can give you a more definitive answer. I don't know if you're frying your balls, as you put it. I guess it's possible, but at least according to what's out there, there's no information that points to that issue.
And I'll add to that. One of the things that you said about your testosterone levels doubling to compensate, I think that another way to look at this is when you're taking dutasteride, you're reducing a lot more of the DHT in your system. So when you look at it from the logical position of less DHTs or less testosterone being converted into DHT, then you have more free-flowing testosterone in your system, which is measurable by the T-level test that you had. So I think that maybe you're not producing more testosterone, less of it's being turned into DHT, if that makes sense. I mean,
unless you knew what your baseline was when you started, then you're never really going to know. But the fact that you're 30 and you've doubled your testosterone, or there is a greater free-flowing testosterone in your body, I mean, that's not a terrible thing. And also, you are one of the lucky guys, unless you are taking one. But I mean, it doesn't seem like you're having any aromatizing effects where by blocking 5-alpha reductase type 1 and type 2, the testosterone byproduct is not turning into estrogen, which is good. Right. So you seem like you are
it's within normal levels.
Okay, so you seem like you're a really good responder, obviously. You've been able to maintain your hair for all this time. You are now 30 years old. So, I mean, you're one of the lucky ones. And I'm glad that you started, early intervention, because that really is the key to success when it comes to slowing the progression or stopping your hair loss.
Right.
So I wouldn't be too concerned about...
I have been using finasteride, dutasteride, and minoxidil for about 5 years straight, and it really does help.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, we are both proof positive that these drugs help. I would not be behind this mic if it didn't change my life completely. And it's good to hear from a younger guy, not that you're not really young now, but, a guy who's been on it for 5 years, who started at a relatively young age, who's had no adverse side effects and has seen positive results. With all that said, I still don't know if I'm going to have any adverse side effects, that I'm some freaky thing or some freaky type of cancer or whatever, because I've been on the drug for over 20 years. Currently, I'm fine. And but I also have chosen not to have children, not because of being on the drug, just, that was my lifestyle choice. And I knock on wood every day, every time I see some crazy kid running around a restaurant or something. But, I would talk to your doctor about it. I would say that most physicians would probably say that you're not going to have any fertility issues. And you can also check your fertility. That's an easy thing to get checked. You can make sure that your sperm, your boys are swimming.
That makes sense. I will do that.
Yeah.
I have one final note maybe to say regarding hair transplants. A friend of mine, a guy I know, who had a transplant done in Russia, and this guy is someone who's involved in like a bodybuilding community and so on. And I was extremely surprised to hear that he was never taking any finasteride or dutasteride or anything like that. And when I asked him, why don't you take finasteride when you take all of these a lot more harmful steroids and experimental chemicals?
Yeah,
he really didn't have an argument. And I think that it's very important to just take your pills, and only then go and get the transplant.
Well, I would say that that's advice that Joe and I, again, we're not physicians, but, the thing is hair loss is a progressive disease. And if you're going to spend the emotional time, the emotional expense and the financial expense of having surgery, you want to give yourself the best possible chance of really having a great outcome that's going to be sustainable. And the only way it's going to be sustainable is if you have at least significantly slowed the progression of your hair loss. And the only way to do that, at least today, is by using the medication that we talk about all the time. So I think that's really good advice.
Hey, caller, before we continue, may I ask, you're obviously not from, I'll say that it sounds like you're obviously from some part of Europe. How are you calling us? You're on your computer, so you're using Skype? And if so, what number are you calling?
I did try to call the UK number, but they didn't allow me to connect with you, so I used the USA number.
Okay, fair enough. That's good. This is a learning process for us as far as these international calls. So that's why I asked that, because some people in the chat room were asking, how are you able to call in, because they've been trying the same thing. So you're on Skype, you can call the US toll-free number, but not the UK number. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. All right. There you go, guys.
All right. So we will actually try to figure out. So what, as a caller from, whether you're from Romania or Russia or wherever you're calling from, and Joe, maybe you can help me out, because we can always get another number.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any good international toll-free services. So what would be a number that these guys can, should we just do something via Skype? Would that be easier for people?
Are you asking me or him?
I'm asking both of you guys.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Caller, what do you think?
I'm not sure. Skype is very convenient for me always.
Yeah.
So okay. I guess, would I be able to connect? I guess I could figure it. Yeah, I have to figure that out, the best way to do that, because I want it to be able to come through my board and through the phone system. We'll figure it out. But listen, caller, I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're doing well. You sound very familiar, but maybe you're somebody else. But if you are the person if you are the person I'm thinking of, I'm glad you're doing well, and it's good to hear from you.
Life doesn't end at 30.
Life just begins at 30. Dude, I'm 50. I'm 53 years old. Are you kidding me? I don't give a shit about that number. I feel good.
Bye, guys.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks for calling.
All right. Kind of think I know who that is, and he sounds like he's doing very well. Changed man.
I like hearing that.
Seems very happy and together. That's great. The phone number is 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Guys in the UK, it is 0203-3724-683. And that is unbelievable. I could read how, if you saw how tiny those numbers are on my screen, Joe, you'd be like, wow, that's impressive.
Well, I would be jealous because I can't see the small print on my screen anymore. I'm squinting right now on my giant monitor because my my print is so, or my characters are so small.
Well, what are you gonna do, guys? We're gonna call it a day if you guys don't call. So call the show 888-659-3727. If we don't get calls in the next few minutes, I'm just gonna be like, hey, we gave it a shot. Saturday show, we got a nice amount of people in the chat. That's terrific. Joe, I don't know if there's any questions that is being asked in the chat that you may want to respond to, but I got shit to do. So
let's see. Any questions? Skype will allow people to. Oh, actually, Bachatero. I think it's Rob. He said if we're using Skype, then that would allow people to send photos as well, which is true.
Well, here's the thing about Skype and allowing people to, like, I can actually set it up where people can pop up. I can put it into my software, and we can actually have them speaking face forward to the world on the show, which would be great. But are guys willing to do that? I don't know.
Most aren't, no.
Right. It would be a lot of fun to be able to take a Skype call, pop it up, and have these guys with their headsets or whatever talking to us live, side by side. We can do a three-way shot, and that would be awesome. But I don't know if guys are going to be willing to do that.
One of the chat, Philly Boy Fitness asked, "Hey Joe, have you noticed the more head hair you lost, you gain more body hair?" That's a great question. Personally, no. I've noticed a little bit more, maybe like on my back as I get older, but I don't have much back hair. But there is a correlation for a lot of people, and the idea is that as your testosterone lowers, I think that's the idea. As your testosterone lowers, your DHT levels will also lower. What is it? Your DHT levels go up? Sorry. There's a correlation between DHT and body hair growth. Because I know that a lot of people, when they...
The greater your DHT levels, the more body hair you have.
Yes, that's
so
right.
When you get on finasteride or dutasteride, and I have, the reason I essentially have the body skin of a 20-year-old Swedish boy, in my view, is because I have been on this drug for so long. There was a time when I felt I was getting a little bit more hair on my hands as a younger person and on my arms, and that just essentially disappeared. I am smooth as fuck. And
it's not because he shaves.
Yeah, and apparently, women dig that from my experience. But I have to credit finasteride for some of that. I don't think I would have been exceptionally hairy. I probably wouldn't have had a hairy back or anything, but I probably would have had more than the, this little patch of hair on my chest, which is like, 7, and now 2 are going gray. And I would have hair on my hands and my legs, and I barely have any hair on my legs either. So,
and I've heard from a lot of people that are taking finasteride that once they started taking it, their body hair percentages actually dropped. There's a lot of indicators that show that that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, so that is definitely how it works. 888-6. Well, again, we're not physicians, but that's how it's worked in my case, and from all the guys who've contacted me over the years, a lot of guys who had hairier legs and hairier arms. That hair diminished to some extent, and some guys they have very little. It turned into like blonde, vellus type of hair. Yeah. I am one of those. I mean, I have a little darkness to the hair on my arms, but not much. And you have to kind of look closely for it. And I have to tell you that to me that was actually a benefit of finasteride, besides saving a good amount of my hair. I know guys who have to fucking manscape and stuff like that. I don't have to worry about that shit. Keeps you young.
I do.
Keeps you young. 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, gentlemen. This is Dave from Brooklyn, New York. I spoke to you a few days ago.
Dave from Brooklyn. How are you, man?
Hello, Dave.
How's it going?
Do you see Maury over at the park?
I'm sorry?
Are you near the park where Maury is?
Maury. This guy Morty called from. He's hanging out at Prospect Park. So.
Oh, it's a small world. My parents, when they came to the United States, they moved into an apartment in Prospect Park, and they lived right on top of the horse stable. And they told me that they could smell the horse exhaust, shall we call it?
Yeah.
From their 6th floor window.
Yeah.
The Prospect Park is a beautiful place, actually.
You know what? It's always been pretty beautiful. I mean, even 20 years ago, you go to Prospect Park, and especially you would go like on the Prospect Park West, I think, and you'd see all these really beautiful brownstones and just incredible architecture. But now it's a different world. I mean, it's so expensive to live there.
Yeah, that part of Brooklyn has really gone up in value.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. But go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. But it's funny. I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I was saying, it's amazing because I've come to the conclusion that you gentlemen are talking to a niche market of listeners who have done enough research to have found your show, and to be willing to at least seriously research the prospects of, drugs or surgery. And I couldn't believe how lucky I was to get to hear the doctor who spoke last week, Dr. Alan Bauer, was it? Or
Alan
called in?
Alan Bauman. Or the guy who called in last week was actually Scott Alexander.
Yeah.
Okay,
no, it was,
right,
it was this
right.
week. It was on Tuesday.
It was on Tuesday.
Yeah, it was past Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to stop drinking, man. My weeks are just, I don't know what's happening.
they blend.
Yeah. The older I get, the more wine I enjoy. I have to tell you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Spencer, we may have been separated at birth because every time you say these things, but I couldn't believe our luck, getting to hear him speak and talk about the, he was confirming what you were saying, Spencer, about how surgery is going in reverse. I mean, in every single technology, especially in medicine, all we hear is it's getting better. And yet somehow this is the only thing that's actually reversing in quality because of the marketplace and because of the FUE and the technicians, obviously, and all of that.
Well, there's two things that are reversing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but cosmetic surgery in general is really going down the tubes. And it's it's because of all of the different devices that are being manufactured and being marketed to the public through television ads and through print ads. So you have companies like, and this is not saying that this particular device is bad, but I'm just giving an example, like Cool Sculpting. You will see a billboard, at least here in LA, like every few miles for Cool Sculpting. So consumers basically are asking for the device as opposed to a procedure that will diminish their fat. So if these companies don't purchase this device and partner with these doctors, don't purchase these devices and then partner with the companies to utilize this device, then they are kind of left behind because consumers, they create this consumer demand. Now, for a certain demographic, Cool Sculpting is not good. It's not going to help them. And frankly, doctors, in order to keep up with the financial demand it takes to run this device, they have to hire less qualified people to run the device and to perform the procedure so they can go out and actually do surgery and do breast augmentation and stuff like that. So it's a mess. Wow. The entire field is a mess. But yes, hair transplantation is, no matter what the ISHRS claims, no matter what the media claims, it is worse, in my view, than it has been in 20 years in general.
That is so depressing to a guy like myself, and I'm sure many of your listeners who are, because at this point, like I told you last week, I'm practically a Norwood 6. I shave my head, I grow my facial hair, I kind of put it together. And I'm on the fence. I mean, I don't need to have surgery today or next week or next month, but will I, consider it within 5 years? Possibly. So, but I admit, before I heard you guys, before I found you guys, I've been shaving my head for 20 years. I never even thought about it. All of a sudden, it just kind of dawned on me, you know what? I kind of miss my hair a little bit, and I started researching, and if I didn't find you guys, I am such a gullible idiot. I may have been on the next flight to Turkey. Now, I'm not saying that those guys are necessarily bad, but I'm just saying I am such a dummy that I probably would have fallen for the dimly lit before and afters. Really, I'm such a simpleton that it's that bad. And I'm so happy that I was able to, allow myself to not be in denial about the realities. When you were saying things like, you don't even know how bad it is. And like at this point, I don't care if it's $8 a graft or whatever it is. I would have fewer grafts done and get the quality of a Cooley or a Bernstein or someone on your websites rather than take my chance with a technician who may have been hired 3 months ago, who may be an experiment, who may not be proficient. I mean, how do I know? So I want to be the only guy being done that day. I want a guy with a robust, before and after, shots, and even that, who knows when they make it, who knows? You never know, right? But, we want to come as close to the truth as possible.
Well, I can tell you that you don't know because to this day, and it happened a lot more when I first started, But you have to understand the IHRS I founded the IHRS in 2000. The actual website went up in 2001. And I started the Bald Truth list in 1998. So once we started to get some legs, let's put it that way, and the radio show really took off, doctors were contacting us, asking if we can provide before and after pictures because they were new to hair transplant surgery. Now, you would think that, holy shit, how is this possible? This is what happens all the time. And to this day, I have people contacting the organization asking if we provide marketing materials for sale, including before and after pictures. So when you talk about looking at before and after pictures, there is a pretty significant number of guys out there who are on YouTube, who are really promoting the shit out of themselves, who are either stealing before and after pictures or buying before and after pictures or being provided before and after pictures by the product manufacturers.
Amazing. Absolutely.
This flies right in the face of everything we've been moving away from, because I remember, and this may still be happening at some chain type of clinics where you'll go in and you'll have your consultation, and they open the book or they turn on the computer display or the presentation, and they're showing you a bunch of before and after photos, but what they're not telling you is that the doctor that's doing the surgery for you didn't touch these people. They're results from a doctor that works for the same company, but on the other side of the country.
Right.
Right. I read where you said that before, Joe, and that stuck in my head too. Exactly. It's from Bosley or whomever, but how do you know that doctor is part of this particular establishment, or how maybe he moved, or who knows what, right? So,
well, here's the thing. You talk about Bosley, and I always say, listen, they've come a long way. They're much better than they were years ago. But the truth is, when you look at their marketing, and I actually sat down and met with their marketing person. Actually here in Beverly Hills, not too long ago, they wanted to talk to me about potentially working together. And I was like, all right, I'll take the meeting. It's fine. And then as I'm speaking to this guy, who's obviously he's good at what he does. He's well known in the direct sales, direct TV sales world. And, as I was bringing up some of the issues that I had with the current marketing, like the most experienced practice, in the world, and whatever it is, like who's the most experienced? Which doctors are really the most experienced? And what about your technicians? How experienced are these technicians? Like, does this accumulated knowledge go into some sort of central repository that everyone can plug into and get that same experience? I don't think it works like that. My suggestion to him was, if you wanted to work with me in any capacity, that we would have to then work with individual physicians, have their credentials out there, and also whatever technicians or PAs who are working, this all has to be transparent and for public consumption. And there will be some doctors who will not make the grade, and it can't be one for all. It can't just be Bosley. And he did not understand it, didn't necessarily get it, and then came back to me and said, well, how about we do a trial and see what kind of leads we got? And as soon as I heard that, I was like, dude, you're talking to the wrong fucking guy. I would love to take your money, but it's not going to happen. So I don't think we're ever going to be able to work with, even though Bosley has come a long way, I just don't see it happening because the marketing aspect of things, the fact that it costs them so much per lead, they have to get people in the door. Even though their work is better, I think that they have to use these tactics in order to convert leads that cost them money into surgeries. And that's something that I don't want to be involved in.
Yeah. Well, to give you before I run, gentlemen, there's my uncle is he's a dermatologist, cosmetic surgeon, and he is a member of the highly esteemed, American Board of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, ABFPRS, right? And his brother as well, and his father. So two generations, three different members of the same family, ABFPRS, which is the absolute highest, accreditation you could have for facial plastic surgery. Now, there's another group called the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, AAFPRS. Now, the general consumer the AAFPRS, American Academy, is basically a fraternity, I believe. The ABFPRS, that is really where you've got to pass board certified, stuff. But, the general consumer, they see AAFPRS and they go, oh, he's board certified by the American Academy, but that's not one of the 24 medical specialties that the AMA puts out.
It's the ABMS, not the AMA.
ABMS, I'm sorry. Thank you.
But to my knowledge, there is no board certification in facial, plastic, and reconstructive surgery by the ABMS. There is board certification for plastic surgery. But all board-certified facial plastic surgeons I'm aware of, and we can check the ABMS right now.
You're right.
Yeah, usually
the American Board of Otolaryngology and American Board of Plastic Surgery. You're right. Those are the 20. Those are part of the 24.
Yeah. So ENTs are board-certified, and a lot of ENTs end up going to facial plastics.
Right, and when they do that, then you're right. The ABFPRS is not part of the 24. I was getting a little confused.
Right.
But it is still the highest board for facial plastic surgeons. And then you could also be American Board of Otolaryngology or American Board of Plastic Surgery, which are the only two plastic surgeries, I think, in the ABMS.
Now, you can speak to your family member about this, but, my concern is always this. When doctors who are facial plastic surgeons say that they are double board certified, if they are not, say, board certified in internal medicine and, they're not board certified ENTs, then if they are using their certification as a facial plastic and reconstructive surgery and promoting that as board certified, that's not only disingenuous, it's actually illegal in some states. And I see that all the time. Now, that's not to say that there's some really incredible facial plastic guys who were head and neck guys who did learn about surgery, or also general surgeons who ended up becoming head and neck guys who then ended up taking fellowships in facial plastic and reconstructive surgery. But you're right as far as the confusion aspect of it, because in my view, consumers have no fucking clue. There's no such thing as being board certified in hair transplant surgery. However, there is an American board of what is it?
Hair restoration surgery.
Hair restoration surgery, and these guys promote themselves as being board certified or fellows, I should say, of the ABHRS. Okay. And people think that means something. All that means is, and it does mean something to some degree. At the very least, they passed a very rigorous written and oral exam, so they know the basics very well. But it has nothing to do with quality. It has nothing to do with their abilities. And they are not board certified. So to say that they're board certified hair transplant surgeons is, in my view, it's pretty fucked up.
Wow. Absolutely, absolutely.
So anyway, I didn't mean to contradict you, but I just wanted to let the consumer know.
I was definitely off. What you're saying makes sense. Yeah, you have to, in fact, let me add this. In order to even take the board certification for ABFPRS, you have to be American Board of Otolaryngology, which is one of the 24
You
ABMS.
have to be board certified as an ENT, so yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. Yeah, and but as far as I've got Cooley on my list, I've got Bernstein on my list, I've got Hassan, and
I don't know why you even have anybody on your list. You've been shaving your head for 20 years. How old are you? You must be my age or close to.
I'll be 44. I'll be 44 very soon. And you know what? Listen, guys, just on another note, I really believe that, it's all about confidence. It's all about, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's, I'd love to have a full head of hair again. But
so would I.
Even wonder.
I like to be 6'3" and a porn star. It's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah. You know what? Sometimes I wonder. I don't know. I feel like, sometimes I feel like, hey, the technology is there. The doctors are waiting. Just go and do it. And then I think,
they're waiting, all right.
Yeah, they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting for people like you who believe the technology is there. Yes, is the technology there? It is. I mean, there are guys who are doing incredible work. However, are you a candidate to get what you really want, or are you a candidate to have a nicely framed face and a bald spot for the rest of your life.
I think a better way to say it is the technology isn't there. It's close enough to where the artistry and medical understanding takes over and makes it a complete product for the right patient. Technology itself, it's like there's nothing there. No technology out there that's going to guarantee that you're going to have like a great result. Nothing does. But it's like the tools that are available for you as a patient or available to the practitioner as a surgeon of some sort, be it a doctor or technician, they essentially haven't changed since the invention of the punch plug.
Right.
They're round. The sizes have changed. Maybe the sharpness has changed.
Well, there's one group with two guys that are using a football shaped punch. So that's changed.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't say that is any type of advanced technology. I think that's actually taking things backwards.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But the bottom line is hair transplant technology hasn't really seen any sort of incredible invention that's just wiped everything else off the map. It's small incremental improvements that are half technology and half just understanding your craft, and I think it's going to continue to be that way for quite a while. I actually don't think a tool will come out that'll make it an even playing field for everyone before some sort of major breakthrough in treatments come through to make it irrelevant.
Right. So at this point, Joe, listen, you like Dr. Ball, these are the guys that, listen, if I'm the only guy that day, if these guys are involved as much as a doctor can be involved, if they're perfectionists, if I can smell that they have a passion for this, if I'm convinced of all that, then I'll roll the dice, and I'll still expect the worst. You never know. But that's where I'm sitting. So right now, I've got Ball, I've got Bernstein, I've got Hassan and Wang, and I don't care what they charge. To be honest with you, I'd rather get fewer grafts and have multiple surgeries over the long run.
So you don't mind if it's $120,000 for a hair transplant? Good for you.
Well, I guess
you're the one guy.
I'm hoping for the $5 graft, to be honest with you. That's what I'm hoping for.
You'll get it, yeah.
I hope so.
Well, I can't say with all of them you'll get $5 a graft, but yeah.
Well, I
like that attitude though. I mean, you find someone that's got the passion for what you're seeking, and then go in with lower expectations. I think that's the way it should. If you're going to do the procedure to begin with, that's a healthy way of doing it. Absolutely.
Right. When Dr. Alexander said, there's so many fault lines, from extracting to implanting to the transection to necrosis to he said that this is probably the most artistically demanding surgery in cosmetic surgery. And I mean, there's, not to mention subjective perceptions once the procedure is done. Yeah. And there's just so much that I think it's just a matter of, will I finally be willing to go, let's just do this, and we'll live with the consequences, whatever they are. And
he did say it right. And that's a great point. I mean, it's almost like it's a symphony of work that's trying to strive for perfection every day. Right. Because you got so many factors that have to be just right for it to be a successful procedure, and to be able to do this on a consistent basis. That's truly what sets apart the excellent from the not so excellent.
And anyone who's listening, who's just tuning in, who believes that a machine of any kind, a device of any kind, is going to make this a better procedure, even if that machine is semi-autonomous, in my view, that is complete nonsense, because that's and that's the term, semi-autonomous, means that it is not autonomous. It's not doing the work. Right. It is user dependent no matter what. And if those users don't know what they're doing, and in many cases they don't, and again, we're going to take another call in a second, but I did one of my undercover tech segments. The tech essentially said, or did say, that when someone sits down, say for a robotic procedure, for instance, and other procedures as well.
This was amazing.
That robot is calibrated and set with the biggest punch possible at first, even before they see the patient, because they know that those are the punches that are going to be able to get the most intact grafts, and it's going to cause them the least amount of trouble and readjusting and all that stuff in order to get those grafts out. So these technicians are trained to set up this device even before they see this patient. And that is scary. Now, that doesn't mean, that's not to diminish the brand, that's not to diminish the machine itself. If the machine's parameters are set correctly and the right punches are used for the right candidate, it can work well. But she said something that I thought was very compelling. In most offices and most practices that at least she's worked in, the parameters are not set correctly for many patients.
Amazing.
That's fucking scary.
Amazing.
So, all right, man.
Thank you so much,
all right,
gentlemen.
good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for
good
the
hearing
call.
from you.
Take care.
All right.
Great.
888-659-3727. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I know you use an alias. My name is Vince. I actually know a couple of you guys a little bit personally, but just use an alias because I thought I might bring up something of somewhat interest on the Canadian market specifically. And I was just listening in, and I'm a big fan of the show. And number one, Spencer, I do want to correct the previous caller I was listening to saying that, it was a niche thing trying to find you. And, in my experience, I mean, you are findable everywhere, from the work you've done, from the early 2000s, at least, not giving away my age, but, in my early 20s, I mean, that was, you are very findable. So I don't see you as a niche market. I see you as a general authority where people not knowing where to begin can come, and rather than trying to filter out and, facilitate it and get through all the muck and all the fake advertising. It's great to see voices like yourself and Joe, trying to clarify things as pioneers for the non-surgical guys. So I just wanted to correct that. I just didn't think that was appropriate to say that you're some niche guy that nobody can find. I mean, you're very visible, and I just want to thank you for that.
Well, I thank you for saying that. And again, I understand what the other guy was saying. I mean, it really depends, I mean, we are very visible, but we're visible to the extent where people actually have to look. And what that means is the guys that are calling the 800 numbers or who are taking the cards from the gas station kiosks, that are offering NeoGraft, they're not taking the time to go online and do even the slightest bit of research. So they're not going to find us. But you're right. If people do go online for 10 minutes, they're going to find us. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Sorry. And so on that subject, and this is something I want to talk about because I'm not sure how often you get, people who are not doctors but have worked in the field. And there's an issue. I don't know if you guys have talked about this in the Canadian market, which I've worked for a very long time. And then I'm just be very careful what I say. And again, cut me off when you have a thought on this. But, for example, in Canada, and again, I think it's probably similar to the States where, years and years and years ago, the quality of the surgeries were really poor. And then, due to enough complaints, it seemed like most of the colleges in most of the provinces in Canada, specifically Ontario and BC, for example, countered that with a very rigorous now qualification for doctors. And I won't go into great detail unless you guys want to, but, just to the point that now, I mean, 15 years ago, a general practitioner who hadn't done surgery in ever, and probably hadn't even injected a, local anesthetic could do surgery, and now to the point that a dermatologist or what we would say in Ontario is a level 3 doctor, can't even do surgery anymore without, being trained under someone. And the natural consequence of this is it almost seems like the pendulum has swung in the opposite direction, that now, and without naming names, but in BC, there's currently only, one hair loss clinic out there. And, it's almost like impossible to be brought in because first off, you would have to be a doctor medically trained in BC, right? So you would have to be certified there, which is hard to get in. And secondly, then you have to have, a rigorous qualification. When I say rigorous, I mean, the level is not very high as far as 75 to 150 surgeries. But the problem is that it's becoming almost impossible to be trained by other physicians because they don't want to give the lion's share of the market to the young guys.
Right.
The question for you guys is, how do you see that unfolding? Because you now have a college who really doesn't have, and when I say the college, I mean in most provinces and potentially states, and I'm curious to see if it's similar, but you have these, you've got these colleges that really have no real understanding of what the field is, and they're tightening the noose so much that potentially really good doctors who have a genuine interest and passion can't get in unless, of course, you're trained by another doctor. How do you guys see that as a long-term problem, and or do you see it as a problem, and what would you suggest going forward?
Well, that's a good question, and since Joe is in Canada and he's worked in Canadian clinics, I'm going to let him answer it, but I'll give you my 2 cents before I hand it over to Joe. I do think that there has been some issues with the Royal College that were not necessarily in the best interest of patients, in my view. And what are those issues? One is the issues with being able to show before and after images on websites in certain provinces, which is frowned upon. Also, the fact that there are physicians that they're really not allowed to, in the college's mind, make claims that they are superior to other physicians in the same field. And that even includes being accepted into certain organizations like mine. There was an issue at one point with that. So that doesn't allow the consumer to really get a full picture of what they're getting involved in. The college, in my view, just wants all doctors who are in a certain field to be looked at as created equal when that's not the fact. That was the first issue that I saw. Now, this issue is definitely limiting, and eventually these guys are going to die out. They're going to be doctors who are going to be skirting this issue or are not going to be that concerned about their license. There's always criminals out there. There's always guys who are willing to circumvent things by utilizing technicians, things of that stuff that really is not something that the college holds in high regard. So what's going to happen? I think there's going to be a lot of black market stuff. I also think that a lot of guys are going to be forced to travel, and because cosmetic surgery tourism is really in the forefront, it's so easy and accessible and so in your face online that if there are less physicians locally for these guys to consider, then they're going to end up traveling to places like Turkey, India, and other less expensive parts of the world to have surgery done by, complete novices and those who are really not professionals. And Joe, I don't know what you think about this.
No, I think that the move to raise the standards to even enter the field, as some of the provinces have put in place, I think it's a good. I think it's a good-hearted approach. I think that the intentions are the right intentions, because they are trying to keep amateurs from getting involved with this. But and then on one level, you can look at it as, well, if there's fewer people getting involved with it, well, this is an elective procedure. It's not like it's something that's necessary. It's cosmetic. And our message has always been surgery is the last resort. I think it'll encourage people to potentially look at non-surgical options, which keeps them safer, obviously. But at the same time, it's going to drive people outside of the province or even outside of the country to potentially go for procedures that are these cut rate procedures that like the 10 surgeries a day in Turkey or wherever, where they won't get the kind of care that they could get if the regulations were loosened a little bit provincially to allow them to have it closer to home.
I think what the college needs to do is actually have a consultant, an outside advisor, someone who really understands the field and who is a true expert to kind of guide them in in a direction that's going to be in the best interest of consumers, patients, and the field.
That'd be a great idea. Yeah, of course. But the problem is that you've also got a problem where the colleges normally are. It's difficult to deal with them. I mean, just because of any bureaucracy and a medical board, but they seem to be more concerned about what doctors think of each other, because I know cases where one doctor think he heard something from another doctor through a patient, and the college would actually come down on that doctor and even not just warn them, but give them a written warning to prevent them from talking behind the scenes about other doctors. I mean, it was really. It's really a case of micromanagement on the wrong side of things. They're not they're ultimately not concerned about opening up the market to make things easier for patients while keeping them safer. And bringing in an outside consultant, I think that they would scoff at the idea because it's not someone that they would respect in their own circles.
So how do you feel when when we're looking at clinics and we go speak just on that same tangent, and we're looking at clinics where there's not full disclosure from province to province, for example, in Ontario, just to reveal the curtain a bit. I don't know how much you guys have talked about this in the past, but you don't have to have a doctor to actually extract grafts for FUE. It does not have to be physician functional, and you don't have to be a nurse, where I understand, in BC, for example, you technically do have to be a nurse from the last time I checked, and it's varying from province to province. And then you have clinics, say, in Toronto, and again, I'm just pulling back the curtain a little bit, where, which has a high volume of doctors, where the staff that they use is pretty limited, and they rotate through multiple clinics. So basically what's happening is you have an intra-competition where, and I don't know if I need to explain kind of what stick in place is, but that's a type of surgery where, the doctor doesn't really facilitate anything. They might just do a couple grafts and a couple holes in the hairline, and then pretty much it's technicians who do the rest of the surgery and also extract the grafts. How do you feel about doctors who are, because when we're talking about clinics that are talking about the doctor, it's centrifugally focused about the doctor. How do you feel when you understand that the doctor is not really performing the surgery, and really, like a brand new guy could pretty much walk in with no experience, and the quality may not be as good, but you have a little rotation through all these clinics, and they're intercompeting for the same patient, offering different prices, but they're not giving full disclosure that, in fact, most of the staff are pretty much there. So, if you buy Clinic A for that price, Clinic C is going to be the same staff a few days later. How do you advise patients, and what do you say about that type of stuff, which I'm quite sure you're aware of?
Well, I tell people, like, if you're going to go to a technician clinic, you need to ask who the technicians are, and ask how long they've been there, and ask, are these? It's just like going to a chain clinic where there are multiple locations. Are these before and after photos that I'm looking at, were they done by the technicians that will be working on me? I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the point where you can ask the questions and only hope that the answers are honest. They could say yes, where the answer is no, but there's no way to find out. But ultimately, it's you gotta base the decision on your own eyeballs, doing your research, looking at the results that they have, talk to patients in person, develop a discerning eye, meet these patients in person, look at their hair transplant, and ask yourself if that's something you want to have on your own head. Well, if the answer is no, then no.
And I also think what's important, and I think the caller kind of pointed to this, is that consumers are unaware that they are not making a decision based on the physician's credentials. And, the thing is, full disclosure is the key. If a physician would say, hey, look, this is a situation, I may have trained these technicians, or these technicians are very well trained. This is the way that we perform hair transplantation in our clinic. It's all legal. If you, want to know more about those who are going to be performing the surgery on you, then, we can give you that information. We had a caller from, I forgot where he was from, but he ended up going to a NeoGraft guy, I think he was a facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon. He may have been a board-certified plastic surgeon. And he was very open. He said, look, I'm not doing the surgery. We have experts who come in. We have technicians who come in who perform this surgery. You can view a surgery and actually speak to the technicians beforehand. Now, that is very unusual. This person decided to have surgery because he felt comfortable with the technicians and the explanation and everything that the technicians provided him before the surgery. And he ended up having a good experience. How do I feel personally? I think it's fucked up. And I think that, and I think that it's misleading. And I think that this is the nature of the industry. And I think that there are even those who I have recommended and maybe continue to recommend that may be pulling the wool over some people's eyes, including mine. It is my hope and, it's my goal to really make some changes within the IHRS this year and also basically call people out. We are starting a more aggressive truth in advertising campaign through the IHRS.
Right.
And that is going to be something that everyone is going to have to participate in. Otherwise, they will not be members of the organization. And there are plenty of guys. And I told Joe this, I had asked one of the people I work with, to send me an Excel file of all the applications that we received just in the last 4 months to the organization. In the last 4 months, we've received 104 in 4 months applications to the IHRS. Now, what does that say? That says that the industry is growing exponentially. More and more people want to get involved. Now, I can't take all these people into the group. But what I can do is I can look through these guys and see who's willing to tell the truth about their practice and allow them to participate in some way, whether it's just, supporting the truth in advertising campaign, letting people know what's going on in their practice and being transparent. And that's probably the direction that we're going to have to move in because the old guard and the old school guys are not used to showing, like you said, what's behind that curtain. And I think now it's time that they start to do that and consumers understand that so they can make fully informed decisions. And if they choose to go to a tech-driven clinic, then that's their choice. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. No, I do. So, I mean, this is me having worked in the industry for a very long time and seeing things where, I think this is one of the more interesting discussions you can have, which is, you put the emphasis on the doctor, whereas if you have a core group of staff, say, and I'll highlight a really good example. Dr. David Seeger, if anybody's a bit of a fan of old school, I mean, he pretty much put stick in place, and I think it was called, Spencer and Joe, you can correct me, the gold standard on the map, doing more than 2,000 grafts in a strip in the late 1980s, right? Is that correct?
Well, he did. It was actually the early 90s, but yeah, he actually was the guy that was doing large cases of pure follicular unit transplants, and yeah, he was doing stick in place, but the grafts were being cut under using microscopic dissection, and they were naturally occurring follicular units. So he set that standard.
Yeah,
he set that bar, and I can tell you, having seen tens of thousands of patients in Toronto over the years, or Ontario for that matter, the work he was doing in the late 90s was better than a lot of the clinics doing in the mid 2015s. Now, why? Now, unfortunately, as if people don't know, he had passed away, and so as a default, he was doing, the legend says 1,000 surgeries a year. I have no idea, but that was what the legend says. And so, he had all these technicians doing multiple surgeries, and they diffused out into other clinics. Overnight, the clinics who had those staff went from being able to do, for example, if you're doing a strip removal, you would have a physician assistant, extracting the donor strip over the occipital, right, over the temporal. So you had somebody who had the know-how. And overnight, you had several clinics doing really good work. The reason I go down that tangent is to kind of just, reiterate or ask and say, when you're putting the emphasis on the physician first versus potentially, the staff, there's a level of transparency. But I guess my question would be of interest. Where do you think that line begins and where does that line end? And I'll rephrase it this way. If you have the staff from David Seeger, suddenly Dr. David Seeger, overnight go work at a clinic with a doctor who has no experience, but very, very, say 50 surgeries under his belt versus another doctor who's got 150 surgeries under his belt, but his staff has no surgeries. How would you guide and again, I might be going too technical here, but I find it interesting to ask you guys what your opinion would be on that.
Okay, so the exact question that you're asking, if I got this correctly, while I'm reading Joe's text and the chat and all this stuff and trying to run this fucking show, is you're asking how would so you're asking essentially if you had the exact same staff that say were working for David Seeger, who then jumped, Seeger died. Is now working for other clinics, but the clinics or the physician who's on the masthead, so to speak, may not be as experienced. Do you educate consumers about the technicians themselves? Was that your question?
Yeah, and versus the doctor, and where do you place that emphasis? You know what I mean? Can you?
My goal.
What do you recommend with your experience?
My goal is, and that's something that we're trying to accomplish now, is to get these doctors to kind of check their ego at the door and allow us to really start to educate consumers about the technicians who will be working on them. Here's a problem that I am starting to, or I'm trying to address now. There are doctors, well-known doctors, who are concerned about their techs being poached. So they don't necessarily want us to promote their techs through our organization. I think that's kind of fucked up. I understand the reality of it because this is a business. But a lot of these techs, like you said, are going from clinic to clinic. They're being shared by certain clinics. But in many cases, there are, at least with IAHRS members, most of the techs, most of them, not all of them, are really working for one clinic at a time. So the guys that have really good results, who really think they have great techs, who are paying them a good salary, do not want those names out there so that other guys can say, hey, wait a second, Dr. So-and-so is really producing great results. We're going to pay more and poach these techs. So there's a problem. That's a problem that's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate aspect of business in general. And listen, you're in the business. You said you're in the business. So you know this is a business. And that's what consumers have to understand. There's obviously a medical, we should be able to, leave the medicine in this business. But sadly, the medicine in general has been taken out of the business a long time ago. It is a commodity now. And consumers have to understand that. I think the best thing that we can do as people who are in the position that we're in, that's including you if you're still in the industry, is to provide these people with a reality check. And that reality check is, the doctor may have a good reputation because they're churning out good results, but it may not be because of that doctor. And you have to know who is actually going to be having, that time on tissue with you, and how long they've had time on tissue. And if it's not the doctor and they have great techs, then great, you're going to have a great result. But you have to know what's going on. And that's really the best that I think that we can do. Also, there's a question in the chat whether we're going to have more stringent requirements for IHRS members. Well, I will say that, not to pat myself on the back, but currently we have the most stringent requirements. I mean, there's not a physician who's can even apply that doesn't have to have at least 500 cases under their belt, meaning that they've been involved and performed 500 cases. That alone is a big deal in this industry because the ISHRS requires no cases, and the ABHRS, which is the so-called board certification in this field, requires only 50 cases of time on tissue. So that's a big thing. But yes, we are going to be making some more specific changes as time progresses. And you're going to see some guys who are no longer going to be on the list, and some guys who I've had to remove recently because they do not agree with the direction that I'm going. And that direction is kind continuing to tell people that surgery is the last resort and being a little bit more, asking doctors to be a little bit more transparent about their practices. So.
It's interesting. And on that, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and I think this is the last thing I'll say, and just as a question, and I think Joe will echo this because, I was very fortunate in my early years to be working with a very ethical doctor, a great guy, and actually he was board certified with you for a period, Spencer. He's retired, so I won't mention his name just out of respect for him.
Sure.
He's gone into the shadows. He's done. So, but one of the big things he always explained to me was, but I wonder if this is something that patients listening in would understand, is that it's all about, it's number one about what you can do. As the person facilitating the surgery, what you can potentially do for the patient. But it's also about the patient understanding what the result will be and being transparent about the result that you will have and seeing if that result is good. And what I mean to say is that if a patient comes in and he's, say, 55, 60 years old, recently divorced, and, he's a Norwood 6, and he goes, engineer, smart guy, and he says, you know what, I really would be happy with just 2,000, 1,500 grafts in the frontal, 3 fingers, just a little bit of hair so I can frame my face, keep my hair short, and I'm good with that. So let's say he's on a scale of 1 to 10 for his cosmetic beginning, Norwood 7, let's say he's a, 1 out of 10 as far as hair loss. And we realize we can get him to a 4. And because of his age and education, that all things being equal, he's probably going to be happy with that. Versus a patient.
Sorry, caller, back up. Sorry, you were saying 1,500 to 2,000 grafts up front to create a hairline that he'd be happy with. But he's going to be a Norwood 7, or is it? Go over that again.
He's 55, 58, 60, 65, whatever that age, and he's in good physical health. And he says, "Listen, I would be happy with just a bit of a hairline. I want FUE, keep my hair short." Right, and you have a case scenario like that. I'm giving you 2 opposing questions. These are examples, not necessarily real, but I'm giving you 2 examples. Versus the other patient who comes in who's 22 years old, really in shape, young guy. He's a Norwood 1, and he wants just 500 to 800 grafts to fill in his temple points. But you look at that guy and you realize, well, he's already, his natural hairline is extremely good. The probability, and he's very picky, the probability of him getting a better result and making him happy might, again, in 2 extremes, might be harder to achieve than making the first guy who's older, who has been, who has maybe a lower expectation. Well, those are 2 extremes.
That's always been a problem, and that's always something that I've discussed. Since 1998, is that older patients, a guy my age, for instance, if I chose to get a hair transplant, and knowing what I know and having a little bit more hair, and again, I don't make a good candidate for many reasons. But if someone is in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, and they understand the limitations of their donor demand and supply and demand, and would be happy with just a smattering of hair, the ability to frame their face, they are the guys that make the best candidates for several reasons. One is they have not had hair for a long time, or at least they haven't had their face framed for a long time. So just by providing that to them, they're going to be ecstatic, especially if the results are natural. Younger guys are obviously in a much greater panic in general, and they are used to, they remember their full head of hair that they had not too long ago. So most of these guys are not, and anyone who performs surgery on these guys, in my view, they're setting themselves up for a lot of fucking problems. And, to me, it's the last thing. If someone is 22, 23 years old and is a Norwood 2 and is coming in to have their hairline reinforced, I don't care what they say. If they say, well, they're a model and, their work depends on it, these doctors know they're setting them up for a long-term fall.
Yep.
And that's a fucking bad idea. My advice for a model would be get a very small, partial, very light hair system that you can wear for your gigs that could look 100% natural if it's done correctly. And, if it's just purely for work, then this is a great option. And get yourself on finasteride. Again, I'm not a physician. And see if you can stop the progression, even regrow some hair. But to set somebody up for a long-term fall, and a lot of guys do this, and I've had people on the show, doctors who I respect, say, well, this is a very unique case because his livelihood depended on it. I think that's bullshit.
Interesting.
So,
and to flip over to and to address the 55-year-old patient comment, you're saying if he comes in and says, I'd be happy with 1,500 to 2,000 grafts, just give me a hairline, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. No patient walks in off the street and knows what 1,500 to 2,000 grafts is going to do for him. He needs to have a proper consultation and examples shown of what that might look like if there are other cases that resemble that type of approach. But and I know you didn't mean that literally, but just for the people that are listening, if no clinic would realistically listen to a patient when they come in saying, "Yeah, hey, I want to do surgery. Let's do 1,500 to the front and call it a day." Not going to happen. Not with a good clinic, because I mean, there's just the list is longer than my arm. I mean, reasons why not to do that. But ultimately, for people listening to this, that's not the way that patients should come in. No self-respecting clinic would just agree to doing that based on numbers that a patient might submit. They need to go through a proper consultation with every doctor that they're talking to, not bring one consultation over to another doctor. Doesn't work like that.
All right, guy, listen, I really appreciate your insight and your phone call and your questions, and, you brought a lot to the table today. We're going to take some more calls, but I would love for you to call back again, and, you're obviously extremely well-versed, and you have a lot to offer our listeners.
No, absolutely. And guys, thanks for the call. I just thought I'd call in and throw a few questions that maybe people aren't used to. So I appreciate the time.
No, and I appreciate the questions, and I appreciate you obviously have a breadth of knowledge that most callers don't have. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Take care.
No, you're welcome. Take care. Take care, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Where are you calling from, and what can I do for you?
Hi, my name is George. I'm calling from Florida.
Hey, George from Florida.
Hello,
What's
George.
Hanging out, guys. Just wanted to check in. I didn't know you guys did the show on the weekends, so I think it's pretty cool.
I didn't know either. That's why Joe woke me up this morning. He's like, let's do a show. I'm like, all right, let's make it happen.
And I didn't wake him up by nudging his shoulders either. So
no, we were not in the same bed. So what's happening?
Nothing. So I just wanted to share my story just a little bit. I'm 20 years old. I noticed hair loss I would say 6-7 months ago. And so my uncle is a dermatologist in Miami, actually. And he diagnosed and he was like, look, start with Rogaine, see where that takes you. And if that isn't enough, then we'd switch to Propecia. And pretty much my question is, for someone that's super young, are medications really the only thing you can really do? Is there any other option, just to kind of speed up the process of regaining hair?
Well, the fact that you have medications at your age, you got to realize how fucking lucky you are. When I started to lose my hair back in the dark ages, when I was 21 years old, when I first noticed it, there was nothing. Rogaine wasn't even approved by the FDA for hair loss. All we had were snake oils and bullshit and fucking voodoo. And trichologists and all the stuff that you see, you still see that today, but that's what we had. I was hanging upside down with gravity boots, putting cayenne pepper on my head. So, to answer your question, yes,
he's not kidding. He's serious.
Yeah,
That's what he was doing.
I'm not kidding. So, to answer your question, that's what you have. Those are your options right now. You have FDA-approved medication that we know works for a pretty significant percentage of people who start early, meaning early intervention is the key. So your uncle or your father, whoever is a dermatologist, is giving you some good advice. Now, I'm not a physician, and you can talk to is this your uncle you said?
Yes, uncle, yeah.
Okay. You can talk to your uncle about this as well. But, my belief is that Rogaine in general is more of a Band-Aid than anything else. It can help. It can keep your hair in an anagen phase for a longer period of time. You can kind of stave off hair loss for a while, but eventually your hormones will take over. And what you probably want to talk to your uncle about is really addressing the hormonal aspects of your hair loss, which to date is mostly caused by dehydrotestosterone. There is some theory that there are other issues, inflammatory issues, which we know about, but a big culprit in male pattern baldness is the byproduct dehydrotestosterone. That's testosterone being converted from 5-alpha reductase type 2 enzyme to dehydrotestosterone. That is what really shrinks your hair follicles. So to answer your question, you're starting off on the right foot. I think you have to watch it closely and see if Rogaine is helping you in any way. But eventually, if you really want to slow or stop the progression of your hair loss, you're probably going to have to treat it systemically. But again, I'm not a doctor. You should speak to your uncle about this.
Well, no, I mean, I recently started finasteride probably like 2 or 3 months ago, so I am like fighting it eternally.
Okay.
Because
how are you doing?
Like you said, it's definitely doing wonders for the hair. I have had like very slight side effects. What I did was I just dropped the frequency. It's my uncle recommended. He said, take it twice a week, try to see to get used to it. If it gets better, if not, then we'll drop it out. He kind of play around with the dosage a little bit.
Okay.
But in terms of the Rogaine, like what you said, like when I was using it for 6 or 7 months, I wasn't really regrowing hair. I was kind of just keeping hair, and it was like very like weak and brittle. And then like the second I added finasteride, about a month in, the hair definitely like started getting thicker and like back to normal.
That's great.
So I definitely think I got to use both.
Well, and that's the thing. My concern is always when you are on one drug or on 2 drugs at the same time, you don't know exactly what's working. But the fact that you started Rogaine initially, you were on it for a few months, and then you incorporated finasteride, you were able to see the difference, and I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with using both. And again, I'm not a physician, and your uncle I think, gave you some really sage advice on how to deal with the initial side effects. And you're obviously seeing a good response. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't fuck with it at this point. I would probably do exactly what you're doing and, see how long that lasts. You may be one of the guys where, you'll save your hair for 20 or 30 years.
Well, that'd be crazy good.
Well, look, I'm 53. I started taking the drug. I started finasteride at 28, I think. So I've been on it for a long time. So.
And how were the genetics though in the family? Like, were they aggressive hair loss or?
Well, I had one side of my family. All of my uncles were complete Norwoods. Like they were like Norwood 7s by the time they were 40, or some of them in their mid 30s. So there was some aggressive hair loss on my father's side of the family. My father did not have aggressive hair loss. He only had a bald spot and basically maintained his hairline. My mother's side of the family, the hair loss was, it was there and it wasn't. And my mother actually suffered from hair loss older in life. So I think my genetics were not as severe as far as male pattern baldness as a lot of other guys. I don't know where I would have been without finasteride. I may have stopped at a Norwood 4 or Norwood 5, but I started early enough where it probably would have progressed significantly if I didn't treat it.
Well, that's awesome. So it's pretty effective long term then.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm balding in the back and, a little still in the front, and I comb it down, and my hairline is see-through, and I have a big part, and, I have a thinning in the back. I wear makeup, and, but look, I'm 53, and for the most part, I feel pretty comfortable in my own skin. The fact that I talk about it all the time makes me even more comfortable.
And the fact that he's got his hair to this day is just a testament to the approach of using medication long term. If he hadn't been using it, he'd be pretty bald, I would imagine.
I probably would be.
Do you think that this is another quick question, because I did try topical finasteride, but for a little time, like literally like 3 weeks. Do you think the efficacy of that is like as good as oral? Because I just kind of thought about it from like my perspective, like I'm losing hair kind of all over, and I was like, okay, like if I have to rub this all over my head, I'm definitely missing some spots. So I think, like, wouldn't the efficacy be worse technically?
My view is, and I'll let Joe answer this as well, is that your assumption and your logic is correct. So, you know, I mean, I understand why topical finasteride exists, and I think that, you know, for those who cannot tolerate taking it orally, it's a good option. But in my view, and again, I'm not a physician, but as someone who's been around doing this for a very long time, in my view, there's no substitute for taking the drug orally. It
is in existence only because of side effects reported with oral finasteride. That's the only reason that topical finasteride exists, and because it's not being taken orally, because it's not a systemic approach, because it's having to go through the barriers of your skin, and it's diluted with the delivery vehicle. I firmly believe it's not going to be as effective. It doesn't mean it's not going to be great for some people. It's great for a lot of people, but it's designed specifically to reduce the incident of side effects and or the number of side effects. And because you're doing that, you're only doing that by reducing the amount of finasteride that actually enters your body. That's what it comes down to. So it can be very effective, but for those people that have positive effects topically, you'd probably have better effects with the oral medication. However, if you're having side effects with topical, which do exist, contrary to what some people will say, your side effects could be worse with oral as well. So it's a trade-off. But yeah, the short answer is you can have less efficacy along with less side effects with topical versus oral.
I mean, also another positive is just that the oral is just easier, man. I mean, like anything foam is so messy.
Yeah.
Dude, I hate rubbing shit on my head, man. I have to paint my head. That's
foams,
a pain in the
gels,
ass,
all that. It's a pain in the butt. That's why I never really got into Rogaine. Besides, you got to do it twice a day. It's just I didn't want to be a slave to slathering something on my scalp every day. I'm lazy. I just didn't want to do that. And popping the pill, it's just so much easier.
Dude, when I was your age, I was using this bullshit concoction. I was living in Bethesda, Maryland. I was using this bullshit concoction where I had to not rub it. I had to tap it. This was the protocol. You had to put this lotion on in your part line, tap it into your scalp, not rub it, but tap. I think this guy was just doing this as a fucking joke, by the way. To me, you know. And then you had to take towels, wet towels, put them in the microwave, and put hot towels on your scalp. I did this religiously every night for well over a year. Okay.
Wow.
That's the era that I come from. Of course, it didn't work. You know, it was fucking ridiculous. But you know, so
that's crazy.
Oh, dude, it is crazy. Listen, there used to be horse and buggies too. That's how we got around. So I mean, the world has changed. You young guys who are complaining online about, you know, or who are afraid to use finasteride and who are using all these gray market products, you guys have no fucking clue how lucky you are. If finasteride existed when I was your age, I would probably be using less paint today, and I would have saved years of suffering. I mean, torment of the fear of losing my hair at a young age. So consider yourself very lucky. The fact that you're having good results pretty early on in your treatment, there's a good chance that you're going to be able to maintain those results for a long period of time.
That's what I want to hear, man. That'd be awesome.
All right. So you keep us abreast of what's happening. You know, I think your uncle gave you some really good advice.
Good for you.
Just one more question before I go. Is Nizoral even useful? Is it worth using on a consistent basis? Just final question.
I think it is on two levels. Ketoconazole has been shown in some studies to be as effective in some cases as 2% minoxidil. But I also believe that the anti-inflammatory properties of those type, not just Nizoral, but shampoos that use ketoconazole. I think that there is an inflammatory action that can contribute, not cause, but contribute to the issue of hair loss. And by controlling the inflammation, that can help to, your scalp condition in general, being healthier, can help to reduce the amount of hair loss that you're having if there's an inflammatory component to it. In some cases, there are. There's anecdotal evidence that there is a connection with inflammation and hair loss. A lot of people and I say a lot, I mean a lot of people over an accumulated long period of time have told me directly, and then I've read about it, where as they're going through what looks like various phases of shedding, that their scalp is sore to the touch. Like they can literally touch your scalp, and it's painful, and even discolored, like a reddish tint to it. So, that is a very loose correlation to the inflammatory idea or the inflammation idea, and I think there's some validity to that. So, yeah, on two levels, I think that it can help. Don't expect miracles, but it might make your hair feel better, might look a little bit better. It can reduce some shedding if there's, the inflammation issues contributing. And I think that if you take it the right way, maybe twice a week, then there's no problem with that. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I've been taking it twice a week. I just keep it on for like 6-7 minutes and then I take it off. But, twice a week it kind of dries out the hair a little bit. So,
yeah,
would it be bad to use it once a week just since like my hair is, I guess, sensitive to it?
No, it wouldn't be bad at all. It would be what would be bad if you start using it daily, and don't use anything else, and don't do anything to moisturize your hair. But going to once a week is fine. There's no problem with that.
Oh, okay.
All right, man. Well, listen. I wish you the best of luck. I'm really glad that you called and you're doing well, and you're one of the lucky guys, man. You started early. You weren't afraid to jump on the medication bandwagon, and you're going to be one of the guys who will probably maintain their hair in their youth, which sadly a lot of guys, if you see what's happening online, if you read the stuff that's happening on the message forums, these guys are too shit scared to take the FDA approved medication, and they end up really suffering because of it. So I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
All right, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for answering the question.
Thanks for calling.
You got it. Good luck.
All right, bye-bye.
So what do you want to do, Joe? You want to call it a day?
I gotta run, man.
All right,
got stuff to do. It's still early in the day.
All right. Well, listen, guys, I want to thank all of you for calling in. I think the Saturday show was another success. So we'll figure out what days are best for the second broadcast, whether it's Friday or Saturday. You guys can let us know what you think. I think we had a little bit more traffic on Friday, Joe.
We did. We had a little bit more traffic on Friday, but one thing that you guys should do is if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you have subscribed but haven't clicked the little bell next to the subscribe button, this is completely counterintuitive, but once you subscribe, you don't get automatically notified of new episodes or live streaming. You got to click the bell too. So click the bell to make sure you get notifications of when we are live and when announcements are made and things like that. And you can check out The Bald Truth on Tuesdays, but also on any other day of the week that we decide to broadcast. At this point, it's looking like Fridays might be better. But like Spencer said, you guys let us know.
And guys, the website's thebaldtruth.com, of course, for archives of this broadcast. You can check out Joe's personal website, which is hairtransplantmentor.com. Joe, I know that we are streaming on one of our friend of the hair loss community's forum.
Yep,
that's
that
Hair
would
Loss
be
Experiences.
hairlossexperiences.com. They are a great forum with mainly a UK focus, but everyone's invited to participate. One of the good forums out there where the guys that run it are doing the right thing. They're working with good doctors and they're moderating it properly, making sure that you're getting solid information and not dog and pony shows. So big thanks to the moderators over at Hair Loss Experiences for streaming The Bald Truth.
And guys, the American Hair Loss Association, it's AmericanHairLoss.org. Our forum is baldtruthtalk.com. If you're considering surgical hair restoration, a good place to start would be the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. Organization has been in existence for just about 18 years, believe it or not. God, time flies. And we are making some changes to the organization. The organization is evolving. And sadly, some of the changes that we have to make really are because the industry is just getting so much more dangerous than it has been in a very, very long time. So you'll be notified as we make some changes and as things start to evolve. So that's IAHRS.org. Until next time. Be strong, God bless, and thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.